What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Gsluke here with our round 2 live stream for this week's Arnold Palmer Invitational. Gonna break down the Showdown slate, and we do have a few props dropping over there on Underdog. I'm assuming Prize Picks is gonna follow suit here soon, so we'll probably be able to touch on those towards the end. So looking forward to it. I can see a few of you already down there in chat. Welcome on in, everybody. Hopefully you had a decent start to your Thursday. I didn't have John Rahm, but I feel like I'm in a decent spot with some of my leverage picks. Guys there in the top 5, top 10, like a Spieth that are playing well. Aaron Rye, even Adam Schenk I ended up playing this week. So definitely wish I had John Rahm, right? You feel like a little bit of a dummy not using him after the fact, but it's a long golf tournament, right? 4 rounds ahead of us. So going to break down round 1, of course, do a little review, but then hop right into the action here for Friday. So we got Jeff down there already talking about some of the crazy rounds, right? Minwoo had 6 birdies, 4 bogeys, a double, and a triple. And that was only just one of the crazy rounds. Joseph Bramlett, he kind of comes to mind, right? He started like 2 under par. I think was even 3 under par there at one point, was in the lead, and then by the end of the day ended up 4 over par. So there's going to be a lot of rounds like that. It's going to be pretty crazy. What's going on, GameCube? What's going on here on a Thursday afternoon? Kyle, what's going on? Guys were not rewarded for good tee shots or approach shots. I would say the approach shots, they were. The greens were relatively firm, so you did have to account for that. But the tee shots, maybe not so much, right? I would say that the rough, maybe a little bit less penal this year than most, but they're not going to cut it. So that's something I noticed today. If you ended up hitting it in the trampled down rough, it played like a 2-inch Bermuda grass. It played, I would say, pretty average for when it comes to the PGA Tour, but there were a few spots like the right side of 18. If you guys saw Max Homa and Rory towards the end of their round, it was like hacking out a 4-inch sawgrass out there. So I don't know. It's a little bit inconsistent. I'll say that, Jeff. There are greens that seem to be firmer than others. There are spots of the rough that are longer than others out there. So you kind of got to know where to miss. It's a thinking man's golf course. I'll say that much. What's going on, Robert? Over under 5.5 beers, definitely under, actually. Believe it or not, today was a water day. We're getting ready for the weekend, right? It's just a Thursday, so we're not going to go into a full weekend bender or anything like that. But definitely the under. I think it was 1 beer on the course today. Robert says, any chance Rahm can calm the F down? I guess we'll have to see, man, right? That's the question burning in everyone's back of the mind. We'll talk about him, though. You'd have to think that 7 under par, probably not in the cards again tomorrow. Weather's going to have a lot to do with that. Rahm had a day, absolutely. And you had the day 1 outright, right? You had the first round leader. Congrats, Kyle. I saw you post that down in the Discord. That's pretty sweet. And what's going on, Tyler? So with that being said, welcome on in, guys, right? Let's hop into this. So let me go ahead and bring up Data Golf, and let's take a look at how this course played, which a little bit surprising to me, I have to say, was the dispersion between the 2 waves. In fact, the afternoon wave played slightly easier than the morning wave. Wind conditions were the main reason for that. In the morning wave, it got a little bit gusty towards 10 to 1 p.m. So the guys that were maybe finishing their last 3 to 4 holes, or maybe that even had a whole 9 to 10 holes left, kind of got shafted there. And while those conditions lasted for maybe the first hour and a half, 2 hours of the PM wave. In fact, the PM wave was playing to a scoring average of 1.5 over par at one point. It ended up going down to right around even par. So let's say for the last 2.5, 3.5 hours out there, the winds essentially died and were non-existent. So for guys that were out there in the afternoon, that includes John Rahm out there. Kurt Kitayama was one of the notable players. Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele, Keegan Bradley. In fact, a lot of the guys past 5 under par up here, especially a lot of the guys at 3 under, like a Kyle Westmoreland was another PMT time. Let's see, Molinari, right? Another PMT time, a bunch of them on here in the list. They kind of got the advantageous wave draw, and I don't think anybody expected that, right? If anything, we thought the morning wave might be slightly easier today than what you had in the afternoon. But for tomorrow, it looks like that's actually going to help the players even more. So the guys that were in the PM wave, PM AM stack, like we talked about on the live stream, are looking to get the advantage that we were talking about, right? I thought it would be maybe a stroke difference between the 2 waves. Well, on day 1, they got about a 0.23 shot difference. And tomorrow, based on some of the wind conditions we're looking at, they're likely to get at least another like half a shot, probably even closer to a whole shot difference between the 2 waves. And the reason why I say that are the wind gusts look pretty nasty the entire day. Excuse me there. I don't know what's going on with my voice there. Let's take a sip of this, right? Maybe it'll help. If you look at the wind gusts, they're pretty shitty the entire day, right? In the morning, they actually look a little bit worse than the afternoon. They're closer to like 33, 35 miles an hour for a few hours there. But in the afternoon, the sustained winds are a lot worse. You're looking at conditions that are going to be a lot more from just like the consistency standpoint. When you're hitting into the wind, when you have holes that are downwind with that sustained wind there, it's going to play a little bit more difficult. But in the morning, don't think it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows. They're still going to be playing in 30-mile-an-hour gusts. And we know that Windfinder can be shoddy at best when it comes to their projections. So who knows? Maybe it ends up being a little bit more sustained in the morning, right? That could very well be the case. Or these wind gusts that are there, right, might not end up showing up. So it's kind of hard to say. When we take a look at Windfinder here, they have the winds in the morning lower than the afternoon. So you can see there right around 7 a.m. when they're starting, they have them at 9 miles an hour. Closer to 10, they have them kicking up pretty much right away, which this is the unfortunate part, right? They have these in 3-hour intervals, and they have it going from 10 miles an hour the whole way up to 15 miles an hour as soon as 10 a.m. So you're getting two different forecasts here, right? One of them is calling for it to be a little bit calmer in the morning than the afternoon, and the other one's calling for maybe, I don't know, 1 to 2 hours of calmer conditions. It's almost impossible to tell. If we take this by the 3-day, you can actually zoom in a little bit more. It'll help us here. So the 1 day, yeah, it's only going to show Thursday there. So let's look at the 3-day. In the morning, you can see, right, like 10, 12 miles an hour. It kicks up to 15, 16 miles an hour by 10 a.m. So if anything, I think the guys going off early tomorrow might get slightly better conditions for like an hour and a half, 2 hours out there, but kind of similar to what you saw today. The morning guys are going to get that wind kicking up right around 10 a.m., right? So the guys that are going off late in the morning wave tomorrow, I'm not sure they're really going to get the full advantage, right? You can see by the time 10, 11 a.m. comes along, they're getting a bunch of those winds. And if anything, right, I think if you're looking at a weather edge for tomorrow, take the guys going off super early. I mean, like 7 a.m., 7:15, 7:30 tee times, that kind of thing. Because at the very least, we know they're going to have 2, maybe 3 hours of better conditions than everybody else before absolute hell unleashes. Now let's talk about the cut line. So the cut line projection right now, they have it at +2, maybe getting to +3. I'm expecting this to get to at least +3, if not something closer to +4. So the reason I say that, the scoring average today was right around even par. We've seen this golf course on conditions like we've seen tomorrow, and it typically plays at least 2.5 shots over par. So this, even par average that we saw there for round one was reminiscent of what we saw last year during Thursday. Conditions weren't all that penal. You had guys go out there, take it to 5, 6 under par, just like you saw today. And then throughout the rest of the week, and it didn't even happen Friday. Friday actually had pretty decent conditions as well. It was mostly Saturday and Sunday at last year's API where the winds kicked up. Again, the winning score was 5 under par. The scoring average went from right about even par through the first 2 rounds to 1.89 over the last 2, right? So in general, right, 1.89 over average. What do you think the last 2 scoring averages were, right? Like 3, 3.5 par, 3.5 over par. So that's what you're going to see. This course is going to do essentially an entire 180. And it's not just from the ball striking that gets more difficult. It's the greens. Making those 3 to 4 footers on greens that are running 12.5, 13 on the stimp meter. I don't want to say it's impossible when you're dealing with, those kind of conditions, but it makes it unbelievably more difficult. I mean, I would expect to see just putt after putt missed from that 3 to 5 foot range tomorrow, let alone guys trying to make it from 5 to 10 feet. It's going to take a good amount of luck to get the job done there. It's something that I think is slept on when it comes to these kind of conditions are your top tier putters, guys that have stable footing, guys like Kevin Kisner that are just, there's a reason why they're the best putters in the world. They have the most stable base. Kevin Kisner is actually somebody that practices his stabilization, right? He gets, I don't know if you've seen the video before, it's widely publicized. He does this all the time, but he stands on little medicine balls and then hits his putts on the practice range. It takes that kind of putter to overcome that kind of thing. So I'm not just looking at players with a low ball flight. I'm not just looking for guys that are excellent ball strikers for that matter. I'm looking for somebody that has some sort of edge when it comes to the wind, right? It might be their putting. It might be that they're a known low ball flight player. Whatever the case may be, you're going to need that tomorrow. And sure, you're going to have those random guys that spike. I think a spike round tomorrow is probably going to be 2 under par. Legitimately, you may only see like 10 guys break par tomorrow. And if you're trying to build like an optimal GPP lineup, it very well might just be 6 different players, right, that end up shooting -1 or even par on the day, and that ends up winning you the GPP. So I think we need to rethink this slate. You can't be looking for upside like we typically do. I mean, it's why we like guys like Peter Malnati, right? It's why we like guys like a Cameron Young for that example. Sam Burns, right, is always somebody I'm looking for in a showdown kind of format. And that's not really the case for tomorrow. We're not looking for that traditional kind of upside. We're looking for somebody that can piece together like one under par round. Like legitimately, I think that would probably get the job done tomorrow. So let's go ahead, stop sharing our screen, bring up our projections, and start talking about some DFS strategy. So if you're just hopping in here, you're new to the live streams, we'll talk through DFS first, and then afterwards, we're going to go through all of the prop sides. So if you have any DFS questions, now is the time for it. And then afterwards, we'll hop into props. But before we hop into DFS, let's go ahead and catch up on chat. Nick says the evening wave had the better players also. Good point. And yeah, you got the hat tan going. So if I take off, I let the flow go out a little bit there, I might have the hat tan going. And I can tell you that Will Zalatoris has one of the worst hat tans that I think I've ever seen. He took off his hat when he finished up today, and he really shouldn't have. I'll just say that. It was pretty embarrassing to look at. But yeah, we got that tan going for sure. And you're saying the better players were there. That's a good point. I know at the bottom end of the board, like if we scroll down here, I mean, look how many of these guys are playing in the PM tomorrow, right? Like there are some AM guys for sure, but a vast majority of these guys down low are PM. Now, sure, there's a whole like grouping here of guys that are AM wave, but I think you're spot on with that too. That might have been a reason for why it played a little bit easier. It's hard to quantify that, right? To actually go through and adjust the scoring average based on talent level, but yeah, you might be right for sure. You hit the picks you gave us with Patrick Mahomes free square, and you haven't hit since then. Well, hey, man, that's on you. I've hit plenty of cards since then. I know guys down in the Patreon have as well. But you might want to check yourself then, man. You might just be entering bad cards or like 6-man cards. If you're entering like 5-6-man cards like that, that's probably the problem, right? You're entering cards that have like a 2 to 3% hit rate. And if you're expecting to hit like one of those a week, you might want to check your expectations. So I would check on that, Nislandler. I've actually had a pretty good last 2 weeks, and particularly today, I actually hit pretty well today. So I don't know if you're on the Patreon, if you're just somebody that comes into these streams and whatnot, but you might want to check your card construction. That's what I would recommend, to be quite frank with you. If you haven't hit a card since the Super Bowl, that's not a good sign for you. I have to say that I've hit like 100 since then. Neil says, hey guys, what's going on, Neil? Hopefully you're having a good start. So let's talk through DFS strategy. We'll go through props later on. Again, we have an angry elf down there in chat, so got to put him in his place. But let's go through this DFS section. So for DFS, for any round of Showdown, right, ownership is the name of the game. We're talking about the most volatile form of DFS that's out there. It's an 18-round sample size on a sport that's already volatile to begin with, right? When we have 4 rounds, we already see some crazy shit happen. But when you're looking at just a single day, even more crazy shit's going to happen. So anytime you have somebody that's going to be 40, 50% owned, they're almost automatic fades, except with the Rombo. He's going to be unbelievably chalky tomorrow. He's going to be, at least per my projections, at least 40% owned when it comes to some of the large field contests. That doesn't mean you have to fade him. He's playing in the morning wave. He's going to have the slightly advantageous conditions. He gets receptive greens this time around as well. So at $11,300, I don't think you have to fade him based on ownership, but I would heavily advise fading him tomorrow. I would, advise against playing him there at super high ownership just because of how volatile it is. And I know, right? He shot 7 under par. He looks invincible at this point, right? He was making 30, 40 footers all day, right? You'd be crazy not to play Jon Rahm, except we're looking for a top end GPP performance, right? We're playing against at least a few thousand other people, if not closer to like 10 to 20,000 other people in some of the larger field GPPs, and him shooting even par or +1 tomorrow, which might be one of the top 20 performances on the slate, might not be enough, right? Because not only do you have to get those top 6 players right, you have to consider salary, and he's $11,300 and 40% owned. So for me, I think it would be crazy to go out there and lock Jon Rahm tomorrow, but if you're going to play him, here's my caveat there. And I know a lot of you out there, right? At least 40% of you, right, are probably going to play Jon Rahm tomorrow. Just play him in every lineup, right? Do me a favor, actually get leverage to the field, because when somebody's going to be 40% owned, you can't go out there and play him in 40% of lineups, 50% of lineups, right? Match the field. You're just going to be paying the rake at that point. And if you're playing 150 lineups, I think it's a little bit better to go after that kind of strategy. I'd be a little bit more okay with maybe matching the field. But if you're playing 2-3 lineups or 20 max, that kind of thing, you would be crazy to go out there. So just beware with John Rahm, right? If you're going to play him properly, just don't be one of those guys that plays 20 lineups and plays them in 10. You're literally shooting yourself in the foot. You're making yourself playing a 5-on-5 versus the rest of the field, and you're just paying more of the rake. You're giving away a lot of that EV. You would be in just such a better situation if you either full fade or you full play him. I would pick one of those two. In terms of other chalky guys, like Scotty Scheffler is getting some ownership. That's for sure. Down here in the 9K range, it's a little bit more spread out. There are a few guys that are being overlooked, most notably like, Justin Thomas, Victor Hovland, that are playing in the PM wave. They're not getting as much ownership as they probably should. But truth be told, and I guess I didn't talk about this before with the weather advantage, I'm only playing AM guys because we have this elite tier field. We have enough guys playing in the morning that are going to be low owned that I can just stick to that wave. And it might only be like a half a stroke to a stroke difference, but that's enough when I'm playing 150 lineups to try and build in that kind of edge, right? To try and get that kind of boost to my EV there. So I'm only playing AM guys. So I know if you were looking for like pivots up top, Will Zalatoris, right, going to be super low owned. JT, because he's PM wave, right, going to be super low owned. I'm just not willing to get there because of the T time stack, the kind of advantage that I think they're going to have. But I don't think you have to avoid them. Or particularly if you're playing as many lineups as I am, you can play a few of these guys that are going to be in the PM wave tomorrow. Just know that they have a little bit of a lower hit rate than some of their counterparts. I do like Rory, have to mention that. The guy was an absolute sell job today. Just could not get anything done there at 10,200. Was super highly owned, right? 25% owned to GPPs, which never feels great when you played 50% here. Yeah, I played him in half my lineup. So his 1 over par right now is not doing me very well, particularly when I have like Spieth in my lineups. Rye up there, Scotty Scheffler, right, is the other guy up top I ended up taking this week. Just get it together, Rory. And if you guys are new to PGA DFS, if you've been around for a while, you've kind of seen this with Rory before, but if you're new, you may not have seen this. It's kind of his MO. Like, especially like over a year ago, like every single round one, he'd go out there and shoot like 2-3 over par. In major championships, it was becoming such a recurring theme that the announcers would talk about it during his first few holes. Now, over the last 6 months to a year, he's kind of gone away with that. He's actually had a few solid first round performances. In fact, at this event, I believe last year, right, he was first round leader at this event. I think the year before that, he was also in contention to be first round leader. So I thought he would go out there and shed that this week, right? I thought he'd actually have a good first round. I was sorely mistaken there, it seems. But in round 2 through 4, right, over the last 2-3 years, that's when he's been his best. So maybe he's just getting back to that DNA where he sucks on round 1. It'll be fine for the rest of the weekend. I'm certainly hoping so. I'll just say that much. I don't know if I'm counting on it, right? He's only 16.8% owned. He's less than half the ownership of somebody like a John Rahm. So if you want to take more of a scattershot approach up top, it's guys like Rory McIlroy, right? That you can play in 35-40% of your lineups and get that leverage. And you can not just play Rory, right? Like, I know I have a lot of this stuff blacked out over here. Of course, I have the rest on my Patreon page, right? Like, I'm taking more than just Rory here. Just know that, right? I'm scattershotting this range up top. But if you play John Rahm, you don't have that luxury, right? I think you should essentially lock him if you're getting to a John Rahm tomorrow, which is going to take you away from a Scotty, a Rory, a Will Zalatoris, or a Max Homa that you could potentially be playing there. You're just going to have John Rahm, which again, I don't know. I think that guys like Scotty, if you gave me Scotty, Rory, Zalatoris, and Homa versus John Rahm, now I don't think you could play all 4 of these guys in replace of John Rahm. You could probably play 3 of them. But let's say you only got 3 of them. Let's say that you got Scotty, Rory, and Max Homa versus John Rahm. Clearly, you're taking the 3, right? You're not taking John Rahm in that circumstance. You're not going to take a 3-on-1 matchup there. That's the idea, right? When somebody is that much higher owned than everybody else, probably when you want to consider a fade. In terms of your 9K options, I want to point out Colin Morikawa. He played a lot better than his score indicated. I could just tell you that the iron play was there. He could not make a putt, right? That's kind of his MO. He does that sometimes, but the off the tee play could have been a lot sharper too. So at $9,300, I think he has plenty of room for improvement. And the one thing that we've seen over the last 2 months is that on Bermuda grass, he tends to make a lot more putts than on any other surface. I'm thinking, they're at the Waste Management. They have slightly Bermuda greens, right? It's a hybrid surface. He putted pretty decently there. And then, of course, at the Tournament of Champions, where he nearly won, he had a hell of a putting week there too. So I'm hoping that he can turn that around in a hurry. Xander's a morning wave. You could consider playing him. Patrick Cantlay is another morning guy. I slightly prefer Tony Finau just because he's a little bit better on Bermuda than a Patrick Cantlay. And of course, Patrick Cantlay is an elite level putter, right? So you would hope that he'd be gaining there on Bermuda grass, but in fact is actually a loser on the surface, as opposed to Tony Finau, who played well today, had the irons on pat, and just, I think, is better on Bermuda long-term. It's not even I think, right? I know that he's better on Bermuda long-term. Just the baseline, the metrics end up bearing them out, which you would not expect for somebody who's as inconsistent a putter as a Tony Finau. Has better putting numbers on this surface than one of the best putters in the world, right, in Patrick Cantlay. Let's catch up on chat. Then let's hop through this middle tier range and some of the 7K guys. Yeah, get in the Patreon, of course. And I wasn't trying to put you on blast there, bro. That's my B. But yeah, get in the Patreon because I'm only able to put out so many picks on here. And if you're only entering one card, like, I don't know, if it's a 4 or 5 man card, right? You got to have your expectations there. It's going to be hard to hit them. I usually play a lot of 2-leg cards, so that helps. But yeah, get in the Patreon, man. We're always able to help you out there. Once you get the props, no rush. Would you explain how you build props? Do you only do 2 to 3 bands? I do a huge different combinations of them. Yeah, I'll talk about it a little bit in more detail later on there, GameCube. But I have such a diversified portfolio that it's not like a one size fits all type of answer, right? I have a few 2-mans. I usually run like 1, 4, 5-man card on the slate, but a majority of my actual money is on 2-mans, 3-man flexes, even 4-man flexes are some of my favorite cards to run. Yeah, we'll talk about it later on, but you definitely want to be smart with your strategy there. OO says Rom is in God mode. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He's getting lucky too, I have to say. Like, he chipped in a few times, right? He made that 30, 40 footer. He had the ball bounce off the stands there a few weeks ago, and he had the eagle putt from like 2 feet. If you guys remember that. That doesn't always happen, right? Like, and if that doesn't happen today, he probably shoots -4, right? He's still in contention. So to say that he's just getting lucky is ridiculous. That's blasphemous, but he's definitely having some luck going his way too, on top of being in God mode. Crimson says, just curious why strokes are so high. It's all weather based. So if you missed it, I'm actually going to go ahead and bring it up here because I can see a few of you guys are funneling down there to chat now. Weather tomorrow's nasty. You've got 30-mile-an-hour winds the entire day. Sustained winds are especially bad there in the afternoon wave. That's why. This course plays like an absolute bear when you get the wind. And I did take a peek over there in Underdog before we went live here. I think the lines should be high, but they could actually be even higher than they are. I think the scoring average could be something like a 75 tomorrow. And if that's the case, right, some of those lower tier guys should probably be at like 74.5 or 75 strokes. So it's going to be a tough one, man. I mean, we had guys on Prize Picks today at 74 strokes, 74.5 strokes for Patrick Harrington, and conditions were nowhere near as bad as tomorrow, right? I mean, what, the apex winds were like 16 miles an hour? I mean, it's going to be 30 tomorrow morning. It's going to be twice as much wind, it's going to be fun to watch. I have to say that much, guys. It's going to be an absolute blast to see that in person. I love myself some carnage, that's for sure. Let's see. Eric says, how long does it take these guys to play a round of golf? Thinking about start times. Yeah, like 5.5, 5 hours, something like that. If you get them in a pro-am, it's going to take them like 6.5 hours. It takes them a while. Even longer than that, believe it or not, Magic. It's nuts. You're confused as why strokes are so high. Yeah, you see what I'm talking about. Round 2 is going to be pretty crazy, especially with the wind. Is Mr. Fowler back? I sure hope so, man. I played him this week. Pretty decent first round, I have to say, right? Shot 4 under par. I mean, look at the recent form. I mean, like, it's hard to argue that he's not back, right? 20th, 10th, 11th, made the cut there. 54th is in the top 10 at this point. I mean, yeah, man, it's fire up Ricky Fowler. I already played him going into the week. I think he's back, baby. It's great for golf. Barank last off the tee and on approach, but gained putting in around the green. Yeah, man, that's a tough one because, I mean, you know as good as I do, right, Nick? You said it best. That's the opposite of what he typically does. I can't think that's a good thing. But the thing is, Nick, they're going into such a difficult round tomorrow, right? But like, I almost don't care how they played in round 1 because they're not going to have to hit any of the same shots. You're going to hear guys, I mean, you hear it all the time, actually, after guys play really difficult golf tournaments, that they have to like change their swing. They have to hit low ball flights. They have to punch everything. You're not really hitting that full, high arcing shot anymore. Maybe that helps him out, man. It's hard to say. Like you said, it's kind of hard to get a read on that. I would take a chance on him. I'm playing him there for tomorrow. He's, high quality player. He's used to windy conditions over there on the DP World Tour. And just because of how different the round is going to play, I actually think I'm a little bit more willing to forgive guys based on how they played because of how different the dynamic is going to be, how different your intentions, your perspective, right? Like what you're expecting out of your round changes. Maybe that helps him out. But like you said, that's a tough one. I wish he was coming in with form because he's a hell of a player. That's for damn sure. But I'll still be there. So let's go through this middle tier range. In the 8K range, I want to point out Tom Kim. He's only 8.2% owned. And I'm looking for guys that can grind out pars. And in terms of bogey avoidance, Tom Kim has been elite ever since joining the tour. Very similar to a Sunjay M, where his ball striking is just, he hits the ball straight every single time, right? Around the green game is a huge plus. One of the elite tier around the green guys already is Tom Kim. And he's a rookie here on the PGA Tour. So $8,100, okay round today, going off in the morning wave. These are the kind of guys in the mid tier I'm looking to get to. Not a Keith Mitchell, right? Mitchell is not known for being a grinder. Let's see, Hideki. Gotta like him after today. He actually looked pretty damn good there in the last 9 holes. Shot 2 over his first 4 or 5. Ended up 1 under on the day. So I like the momentum there. Ricky Fowler's another grinder that you could get to. You just want to avoid the hotheads. My hotheads, I would talk about a Keegan Bradley. He makes a ton of bogeys. Let's see. I mean, I already talked about, guys like Keith Mitchell, right? He's a hothead. He's going to make a bunch of bogeys in these kind of conditions. Terrell Hatton is another kind of grinder. And he's won here before when it was super nasty, right? And I mean, even last year, right? He finished in, I think, tied for second place last year, or he at least had a good performance last year. I know that at the very least. And he's a DP World Tour guy from the UK, very used to windy conditions. It's those sort of players that you want to target on a slog of a day. And ideally, you want them to be low owned. I would say that's the one thing that Terrell Hatton lacks, is that he's going to be relatively high owned there tomorrow, but it's that style of player that I'm looking to target. Tommy Fleetwood, another perfect example, right? Shot 1 over par today, nothing flashy, but another one of these European type of players, right? That is used to these kind of conditions. And the reason why we played him this week, right? Or for these conditions, right? If you guys remember, my whole entire thought process was he had two top 5s at major championships. He shows up when conditions get the hardest, and that is exactly what we're going to get. So, no surprise there. An AM Wave Tommy Fleetwood going to be in the player pool. Let's see. Justin Rose, another grinder that you could consider getting to. Billy Horschel, right? One Muirfield Village. We know that he can grind it out. Adam Scott, right? Won there at the Genesis. What is it? Twice now. A Masters champion. You know that he's got the, wherewithal, the mindset to go out there and play in that kind of golf. Even like Brian Harmon kind of has a little bit of a knack for doing that. But a player that I want to focus on here, and I actually have this on the wrong column. Joseph Bramlett is definitely not in the player pool. And, so this is wrong on here, and actually on the projection sheet, I'm going to have to go ahead and fix this after the stream here. It's meant to be Taylor Montgomery, so I apologize for that, guys. I'll go ahead and fix that afterwards because Bramlett's PM Wave, right? We're not playing any PM Wave golfers. I do like Taylor Montgomery, though, so let's go ahead and just copy that down here just so that you guys know or don't make that mistake going forward. It is Taylor Montgomery that I like, and it's because of the putting acumen, right? I talked about before how I think the putting aspect of these rounds kind of gets overlooked. And it's an elite tier putter like a Taylor Montgomery that might not have as much trouble on those 3 to 5 foot putts. So I'm getting to him there in these kind of conditions. If Zane Hoot was AM Wave, I would absolutely love him. This lower end of the 7K range, higher end of the 6K is not my favorite, I have to say. There are guys that I like here, like a Davis Thompson, for example, but they're a little bit more scattered at this point, as you'd expect down here in the 6K range. I do like Taylor Pendrith, though. He's going off early. He had a horrible day today, right? Shot 5 over par, but we've seen him in windy conditions go out there and have success in the past. So I think it's perhaps worth exploring, right? He's going to be super low owned too, only 3.3%. In this middle tier of the 6s, I do like Will Gordon, another player that he's from Sea Island, very used to these windy conditions. Hayne Buckley played well at the U.S. Open when conditions got really tough out there too. So if we're going to see a scoring average of over par, maybe you want to get to somebody that played well at the Open. Matthew Neesmith, another guy who ups his baseline when he's playing in conditions that are playing over par. Down low, I'm not nearly as scattershotting as much as normal. Like for a 4-round contest this week, I mean, I played a ton of 6K guys. I was trying to take a bunch of Rory, Scotty lineups, a bunch of like Rory, and then, guys like JT together and another 9K option. And for Showdown, pricing is a lot softer. So I don't think you have to go out there and force in these 6K guys. So I'm being a little bit more selective about them. I'm only taking players that I have a good rhyme and reason for playing. And I'm not really looking for the upside, right? Like in the past, my whole spiel down here in the 6K range is take the guy, right, that can make birdies in bunches, right? Go out there, post 5 or 6 birdies. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for guys that can keep it together, right? Get to something like even par, 1 under par. And a few of the guys that I've pointed out here, right, like a Pendrith, like a Will Gordon. I do like Davis Riley too. It's worth noting there. And then even Hayden Buckley, maybe even Mackenzie Hughes. You can play in this kind of scenario, or guys that can grind out those pars. Let's go ahead, catch up on chat. Then we're going to go through some lineup construction and then hop over to the prop side. Where are we at? Yeah, we already talked about Morocco. That's right. All right, here's where we are. Joseph says, I should have listened to you about Spieth. Hey, that's okay. I should have listened to everybody else about the John Rahm take this week, right? So, hey, everyone's going to get shit wrong. It's all right. Hey, just play him for round 3 Showdown and thank me later. I don't think he's going to have the best day tomorrow in the PM wave. Play him for round 3 Showdown, and you'll thank me, Joseph. Eric says, how did Webb do today? He is PM. How did Webb do? He shot even par, right? Let's double check. I know he's super cheap. I know he's PM wave, so I'm probably not going to play him for Showdown. No, he's AM wave, at least for my concern. Maybe that's incorrect. I'll double check it. Can't hurt to double check, make sure this tee time is correct. Maybe that's what you're referring to. And he played decently today. I want to look at the shots gained metrics so I can give you a little bit of a better idea. But let's double check on good old Weber's tee time. Yeah, so Weber's AM tee time. Okay, we're right about that. Let's take a look at the good old shots gained metrics, shall we? Go over to the leaderboard. We don't want to see the tee times anymore. There we go. All righty. Good old even par Weber Simpson. Where you at? There you are. Shots gained. This computer's slow as shit, by the way, so I apologize for how long this is taking. It's my laptop on the road, unfortunately. Didn't bring the PC. He lost off the tee, lost on approach, and gained a bunch around the green. I have to say the shots gained don't look so good for Webb, but he still shot even par, still within the cut line right now, so we got to cut him a little bit of slack, but I do worry about that there. Just didn't get it done with the ball striking, and that's kind of what you want to see from Webb. He's one of the better ball strikers of all time. On the same note, Montgomery lost 2.5 strokes putting, which is known for. Yeah, you play Montgomery. I actually didn't know that about Montgomery, but yes, I mean, if he's losing strokes putting and he's playing decently from tee to green, which I'm assuming he did, right? Because he only shot 3 over par. Yeah, he gained off the tee and gained on approach. Yeah, those are the exact type of guys you want to play. Unfortunately, with Moronk, right? He's on the other side of that. Fitz was a bit unlucky today, too. He was going well, then got the bad streak hitting the sign on par 5. Yeah, I saw that. Extremely unlucky to hit that tiny little sign there. But yeah, I mean, if you're looking at guys that are unlucky or lucky, right? Maybe you play the guys that are unlucky and you fade the guys that are lucky. That's not a bad idea at all. How about your boy Shelton? Let's look at his stats. I know he started off rough. When I caught up with Shelton today, he was like 2 over par. But I'm pretty sure he turned it around. He did. He got it to 2 under. I didn't know that. It's actually pretty sweet. So he started 2 over. Actually, he started 3 over par through his first 2 holes, but I caught him after he made his birdie at 3. And in terms of his shots gained, he gained a bunch around the green, gained a bunch with the putter, and was an ever so slightly a gainer with approach play. So I don't hate it. That's kind of what he does, right? He lost strokes off the tee, but he's never going to be the best off the tee player on tour. You go back to him, James. I like it. And a pretty decent day, I have to say, right? Starting 3 over par through your first 2 holes and then getting it to 2 under, that's impressive. You have to make a decision between Keegan Bradley or Fitz, who will have the worst tee time. So yeah, let's look at it. So let me bring up the actual tee times. I know they're both 8. Well, it's got to be Fitz, right? Because Fitz is 7:38. And where is Keegan? Oh, I'm on the wrong. I was on the wrong day there. So it's probably going to be Fitz, right? Because Fitz is a PMT time. Okay, there's Fitz. Yeah, Fitz is PM. Keegan's early AM. I'm just going to confirm that. But if that's the case, then definitely Keegan Bradley. So yeah, Keegan Bradley, man. Keegan Bradley's in the morning wave. Fitz is in the PM wave. Definitely want to go that direction. Aberg looked good today. He did. Kind of like Shelton, guys. I don't know if I'm the death touch when it comes to these players, or maybe when I'm showing up is when they're turning around the rounds. I saw Adberg play his first like 4 or 5 holes, and he was 3 over par. So I was kind of worried about the kid, right? Started off not so hot in his first ever PGA Tour start, but ended up 2 under par, right? Went birdie, 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 and then eagle on hole number 16 to finish. Unfortunately, I already looked at his stats, actually. I was way too intrigued when I got home from the course. He lost off the tee and he lost on approach, which, again, is not ideal. Charlie sweated you just for the push. There you go. Good old Charlie Hoffman, that boy. Jonathan says round 2 pins released. Okay, we'll take a look at those for props. James says, how about your boy Sean? Yeah, like you said, dude, absolutely turned it around. That was pretty sweet. GameCube says, hey, man, I appreciate you. Got to sit up there and doing this. Yeah, I'm doing what I can. Yeah, it's a slow ass computer, but we're making do. And I appreciate that, Frank. You said I'm the go to PGA. Hey, I appreciate you, boss. I think that's a little bit too kind, to be honest, but I appreciate the comment nonetheless. All right, let's go ahead and hop over to DraftKings, and we're going to talk through some lineup construction and then get into the good old prop side. So let's bring up DraftKings here. There we go. And let's talk through a few lineup construction notes. So let me get a sip of this drink, and let's get it started with some cash plays. We're spilling. We're going to have to change our shirt. Lovely. Alrighty, so at the top of the board in terms of cash, you're playing Jon Rahm. If you don't play Jon Rahm in your cash lineup, you're certified insane tomorrow. After that is where it gets interesting, right? I think you probably want to try and save some salary. You're looking for all AM golfers. I'd recommend Terrell Hatton, especially as somebody with elite course history, has played well in the kind of conditions that we're going to get tomorrow, is from the UK. All of that really helps him. And the price tag is more than doable. Towards the bottom end of the 8K, it's tough, right? You want only, realistically, we want only AM golfers. So let's go ahead and put Ricky in there. Let's put Fleetwood in there, right? Another AM golfer that's known for the windy conditions. Just take Jon Rahm and mix in your favorite 7K options. I really think it's a straightforward slate. I mean, Corey Connors is like one of the better cash plays that you can get to on any slate, let alone when he also has the weather advantage and played decently in round 1. So we're going to go ahead and go with these 5 as my, core 5 for cash. If you faded a Rahm in cash, I mean, you don't even get that much out of it, right? Like, okay, sure, let's take Rory instead, right? Let's save the $1,100. It doesn't change your lineup all that much, right? So let's slot in a few of the same guys here. Let's put in a Ricky Fowler as well. Let's put in a Tommy Fleetwood. Now you have $7,900 remaining, right? So maybe instead of taking somebody in the mid 7K range, you get one more 8K option, but it's not like there's a ton of guys here in the 8K range that are first off even playing in the morning, or second off guys that you really even want to get to. So like you could take a Tony Finau, I guess that would be like the advantage, right, to getting to a Rory McIlroy over somebody like a Jon Rahm. But I don't know if it's worth it. Like Rory, he could have a great day tomorrow, but we know that Jon Rahm's probably shooting like 1 under par, like even par tomorrow, right? He's probably going to have a pretty decent day, probably still have the lead after tomorrow. I think you should probably play him in cash. In terms of your GPP lineups, right, this is where all the strategy comes in that we were talking through. This is where you really want to differentiate yourself, where pretty much all of my lineups are going to start with either Rory or potentially one of these 9K options. So, I talked about Morikawa. I really like him. I mean, you could start a lineup with Max Homa, right? He's also going off in the early AM wave. And because you're not taking the 40% owned Jon Rahm, if you want to take some chalky plays here, have at it, right? If you want to take a Terrell Hatton, right, who I mentioned is probably going to get some ownership, but it's well-deserved, by all means do so, right? You don't have a Jon Rahm in this lineup. In the 8K range, put Tom Kim in there, right? So at this point, we have 2 guys I would consider as pivots, right? Tom Kim, sub 10%, Colin Morikawa, one of the lower-owned players there in the 9K range. You can pretty much take whoever the hell we want, right? Like, let's take some real chalky plays here. Let's try to be the biggest chalk donkey as humanly imaginable. Let's take Keegan Bradley, right? Another AMT time that's going to be super popular. And then you would round out this kind of lineup with your favorite option. Even if the $6,700 player is like a Dietrich, who's like 10% owned tomorrow. Dietrich, by the way, played fantastically today, but I do think he's going to be way higher owned than he should be. you could end your lineup that way, and I'd be okay with it. By the way, tea time, don't play Thomas Dietrich in Showdown. Just, for full transparency, he is a PMT time, so I'm not playing him. But if you wanted to, you could get away with it in this kind of build because of how contrarian that you're being. Now, because I know so many people out there, right, I don't think this is a bad idea. I just want to put this on the record, are going to play John Rahm tomorrow. Let me show you how you would do so. So if you're going to play John Rahm, right, and you're trying to play in a large field GPP, well, you just have to think a little bit more, right? You got to consider the game theory side here. So rather than taking, let's say, a Rory McIlroy as your second man in, you're really going to have to force in a pivot here. So, I like Xander tomorrow, but he's getting ownership. So I'm not going to play him there with a John Rahm. In this 8K range, right, I'm not going to use Terrell Hatton because he's going to be super popular there. This is where I take guys like Hideki, right, that are going to be much lower owned than some of their peers. In the top end of the 8K, there's not really anyone that's going to be super low owned. So you might want to avoid that section of the board. Maybe you jam in another 8K guy like a Tom Kim into this lineup. Towards the top end of the 7K, I probably wouldn't take a Keegan Bradley either, right? He's going to be relatively popular. Maybe you try and find a pivot, let's say like a Gary Woodland, right? He's going to be relatively low owned, didn't have the best day today, but is also a morning wave golfer. So it's not impossible by any means to make a lineup with John Rahm at captain. It's just that it kind of takes you off some of the plays I really like, right? The guys that are getting a little bit of ownership, but aren't mega chalk, like a Rory McIlroy, right? Like guys like a Max Homa, for example, that I think is a really good play, or down here, Colin Morikawa, who we talked up here on stream. That's why I don't like playing John Rahm, because I have to think a lot more with the rest of my lineup. And it takes me away from guys that I really want to jam into lineups, especially when I can take 4 or 5 of those guys as opposed to maybe 1 or 2, because I'd have to play 100% John Rahm there. So let's go ahead, see if there's any questions for DFS in chat. And if not, we're going to hop into props. So where are we at? He says, have you tried the underdog fantasy? I have. If so, what are your thoughts? It depends. So if you're talking about their single round stuff for Showdown, I really like it. There's a huge edge out there. If you're talking about their like full, 4-round stuff, I haven't played that much as much. So I like it. I especially like how soft the drafting is. There's a lot of guys over there that have no idea what they're doing. So if you're looking for high ROI, right, relatively high EV, I would consider it for sure. Underdog had Rahm at 73 before bumps. What do they have him at now? Just out of curiosity. He was at 72.5 before. So if he bumped up to 73.5, he was actually, he's down to 72, right? It makes sense to shoot even par. I think that's actually a pretty fair line, if I'm going to be frank, man. I don't know if I'd be slamming the under 72 strokes. Like, I think a ceiling round tomorrow is probably 1 or 2 under par. And if I had to project John Rahm, I haven't brought up my projection system yet. I'm assuming it's going to be right around 72 strokes. So we'll have to see. Speaking of props, let's go ahead and see if Prize Picks put anything up. They may or may not have. They have not. Okay, unfortunate. Well, we have props on Underdog, right? So we might as well touch on something here. If you guys have any questions for props down in chat, feel free to go ahead and give us some answers. Can Rory bounce back to the top 10? He's frustrated. Who knows? I mean, he's not going to do it in one day, right? He's 1 over par at this point. But by the end of the tournament, sure, dude. I mean, the winning score is usually 5 under par here. Something between like 5 and 10 under. And with how shitty the conditions look tomorrow, I mean, it might be like 2 or 3 under par, right? So certainly, right? He's 4 shots off what the potential winning score can be, let alone what the top 10 will be. Just has to step it up, right? Has to go out there, play his best game. Definitely more than capable. Will you ever consider doing a lineup for Underdog Fantasy? Yeah, but they don't do it the same way, right? It's based on drafting. So I'd have to do a draft here on stream, but yeah, maybe at some point. I'm not against that at all. Sounds actually pretty fun. Prize Picks just released. Okay. Prize Picks Rahm is 72.5. Yeah, exactly. Like, I thought the 72 line was probably fair. If you're going to take the under, right, you would take the under at 72.5 on Prize Picks. But let me compare the boards here real quick. Give me a minute. I'm going to sip on the drink. Sorry for some radio silence over the next 20 seconds. I just need to take in these boards and take a look at some of the differences. So give me a second here. Bunch of elite guys at 73 and 73.5. Okay. Let's see what the bottom tier guys are. That's what I'm most curious about. It was 75 strokes. Okay. 74.5 for some of the others. 74.5 for like a Dietrich. Now, here's the issue I have with Prize Picks, right? Is they had Charlie Hoffman at 74 strokes today. And now he's only at 75, and conditions are going to be so much harder. you'd have to think that a bunch of these overs are going to hit, right? Especially if the scoring average is going to be like 75 strokes. Zach Johnson, for example, is like a lower half player in this field, right? He's not one of the top 60 players in the field. So there's probably going to be a lot of overs. Like the guys at 74 are really sticking out. You ideally want to be taking fades for PM guys. So guys are going to be playing in the hardest conditions, like a Dietrich's in the PM wave there. Like I don't hate that over, even though I think he's going to play well this week. Let's see, 73.5 could have some gems, particularly for some PM wave guys. Like, I hate to say it, boys. I love Jordan Spieth to death, right? But 73.5 strokes for him, like, it's an easy over. Like he's probably going to shoot like 2 over par tomorrow at best, probably, right? 73 strokes for he's an AM wave, right? So I would prefer if Xander was PM wave there. But yeah, it's looking like a decent fade board. And in terms of like, comparing it, Fowler's at what, 74 strokes over there in Prize Picks, and then 73.5 over there. Where's 74 strokes. So they're pretty close on their projections. It doesn't look like they're drastically off. What do they have Rory at? Rory's at 73 on both sites. Okay, interesting. Let's see. Tom Kim's at 74 strokes. Where do we have Tom Kimmy at? 73.5. Okay. Sahith 74. Scotty's 72.5. That seems aggressive. Yeah, they have him at 73 on Prize Picks. Okay, so they're within like half a stroke on pretty much everybody. I haven't seen a stroke difference yet, which is kind of surprising. Typically, there's a stroke, sometimes even stroke and a half differences between the two boards. Cam Young, 73.5. All right, so the strokes on Underdog, they're okay, right? There's going to be okay spots. I think the strokes on Prize Picks are looking really good, though, especially some of these lower tier guys. Let's take a look at Birdies Are Better. So for Birdies Are Better, elite guys at 3.5. Okay. 2.5. Do they have guys at 2? This is the question. They don't have any guys at 2. The field average tomorrow for birdies guys is going to be like 2.5, something like that. So for these lower tier guys, they're probably projecting right around 2.5. But if they're PM wave golfers, right, they're going to be exposed to the really nasty winds. Maybe even take unders. Like I know, guys, 2.5 birdies. It seems crazy to want to take an under there. That's how hard the conditions are going to be. But let me just think here for a second. So if we have 2.5 birdies on Dietrich, right, and we can get them at 73.5 strokes, 74.5 strokes. Well, did they just bump that? There's no way this was 74.5 strokes before, right? I'm not crazy, right? This was 73.5 just a minute ago. Oh my. So they're bumping stuff on stream. So they're just out here watching. That's funny. That's not new though. They've done that shit for months. So I'm not surprised, honestly. Okay. Let's take a look at greens and regulation. Down to 11 greens, 10.5. I'm thinking this is going to be under central. I mean, Cantlay hit 10 greens today and shot -4. Like that's just outrageous to me. Hit 10 out of 18 greens is still shot -4. Scoring average is going to be over par tomorrow. So PM wave golfers with the firm greens, with how windy it's going to be, like at 10, right? Maybe you don't take unders. Maybe at 9.5, you don't take unders because hitting half your greens, right? Like a good amount of people are going to hit half their greens tomorrow. But at 10.5, like even for Max Homa going off early, like that just seems a little bit optimistic for these guys, especially with 30-mile-an-hour winds. So, okay, let's go ahead and put together a card. So let's go ahead and do that. So I wanted to take this Dietrich prop, but I literally think they bumped it on stream, which is kind of funny. So they have Zach at 75. Siwoo. Let's look at some of these 73 guys on the board. Let's find some PMT time. So Kirk, I wish he was at like 73.5. So I'm probably going to avoid that. They bumped Spieth on stream. Boys, at this point, like I almost like don't want to give out picks here on stream because they're just going to end up bumping them. Like they're literally watching here bumping. Like imagine being that scared as a lines maker in a sport. Like you're supposed to know the sport, right? You're supposed to be able to do your own analysis. They pay you to do your own analysis, yet you sit on somebody else's stream and just bump their picks. Like, come on. That is just, it's scummy. There's no other way to put it, right? Okay, let's just go over some questions. I need to cool off a little bit over there. Where are we at? A list of your top 15 to 20 locks. That's what my player pool is, man. If you want to join the Patreon page, I post all of the guys I'm playing. You can very easily take that same player pool and just use it on Underdog. So I would recommend that, man. How was the Capitol Grill? Great question, Mark. It was fantastic. My waiter was an absolute boss. He was one of the better waiters I think I've ever had. He started giving me little things of he had me trying different types of whiskey. He started off with just like some lower tier stuff, like stuff that I was ordering, right? And then at the end, it was like this Irish, some Japanese whiskey I was drinking. It was a lot of fun. So I appreciate you asking. It was fantastic for sure. Lots of good bourbon, lots of good steak. And we're going to Fleming's tonight. So we're going to another steakhouse that's pretty similar. We'll have to do the tour of the steakhouses around Orlando and give our best at the end. Gus says, what do you think the cut line will go to? At least +3. I think it might even be +4. Do you think Sam Burns is done? No idea. He's what, like 5 over par? Who knows, man? If you mean done like for the tournament, maybe, right? You might miss the cut. If you mean done in general, hell no. It's just one bad round. So kind of depends on what you mean by done. If you mean with this tournament, probably, right? He's what, 5 over par. He's likely going to have to shoot 3 under tomorrow to make the cut. Probably, I should say this, probably 2 under to make the cut there tomorrow in the hardest conditions. I wouldn't count on it, but you've seen crazier things happen. Obviously, terrible conditions, but you like some overs at 2.5. Always nice to not worry about bogeys and helps multiplier. Yeah, if you're talking about morning guys, maybe, man, I just make sure they're high birdie percentage players because this is going to be an absolute shit show. Like, what today, like guys like Hadman only ended up making like 1 birdie on the entire day, and he had pretty decent conditions out there. Ugh. Like Sihith, right? Like I know he's a PN Wave golfer, but like make sure they're at least good golfers, right? Like don't be taken, and I know you know better, Damon, so this is more pointed to the other guys out there. Don't be taken. There's actually not even that many bad golfers on here. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, they're all of adequate talent level, so I don't think you're going to go wrong with any of them. But like, if they had Zach Johnson, right, at like 2.5 birdies, or Patrick Harrington at like 2.5 birdies, I wouldn't take them, right? Those are the kind of guys I'm talking about. Yeah, Spieth got bumped. Yep. They're going up. Yeah, honestly, and they're moving away from the underdog stuff, which is crazy. Like the underdog guys are still lower, right? Like, what is Spieth at an underdog? Just out of curiosity. He's at 73.5 still, right? An underdog. Just go over to underdog and take it. They're not being as bitch made with the bumps. Yeah, they're watching. They've always been watching the streams, man. They've always been here. If I could figure out a way to ban them, I would. But unfortunately, YouTube is a open platform, which is great, but can't ban people like that. GameCube says, get out of here. I'm not going to read the end of it, but I completely agree with you. Gianni says, you are boycotting Prize Picks, changing their props midstream. Hey, yeah, let's just play on underdog, guys. Like, they have all the same props over here, right? What was the other one we had? Dietrich? I guess Dietrich's not on here, right? But you can still play the Spieth prop. So go with that for sure. Let's actually go ahead and add it on there. Rather than making a card over there in Prize Picks, guys, we're just going to make one on underdog. So I completely agree with you there, Gianni. Wait, did they take Spieth off? Or am I blind? Oh, no, I was just blind. Okay, good. I was going to be like, underdog, don't do that to me, right? Like, you guys are looking like the good guys today, right? I'm promoting your page rather than Prize Picks. Like, don't do me dirty like that, or else I won't promote you guys. I'll just stop giving props on stream. Fuck it, right? Like, I'll give you guys less action. I'm sure you guys wouldn't like that, underdog. Fleming's is awesome. Good to hear. I've never been there before. I've heard good things, though. My mom told me to go there. She's been to the one in Orlando, too. JGA says, Scotty over Birdie or better versus Hovland. Hovland is a maniac, man. So I'd probably avoid that. Yeah, I would avoid it, man. Especially with like the windy conditions. Victor Hovland does play well in the wind. He went to Oklahoma State. He has one of the more piercing ball flights in all of the PGA Tour. So I would probably avoid that. Just saying. You're living large. It's just me this week too, Mark. I'm not even out here with anybody. It's just me out here. So I'm going by myself. So I'm treating myself to some steak, that's for sure. If I was bringing out my buddies with me, right? If my brother was here, a couple of my best buddies, I don't know if I'd be treating them to Fleming's, right? But I'll treat myself to Fleming's. Nick Shields says, Krishner's one of your favorite in town. Okay, I'll check it out. Let me... Oh, I don't have, if I had my phone on me in my pocket, I was going to write it down, but let me go ahead and just jot it to the side. She said, Krishner's? Okay. All right. Noted. We'll look into that for tomorrow, Nick. That's good to know. And I'm going to take your word on it because you locals know best. Damon says Tom Kim 2.5 is the one that really reeled you in. Yeah, I like that one too. Because I think he's a good player in wind, at least on based what we've seen so far. Yeah, but again, I got to get off of prize picks because as soon as I mention that, Damon, they're going to bump it. So watch. That's going to go to 3 here in a second. If we know that they're down there in chat. Kyle says, how will the morning be? Saw not too bad of wins. Not sure I agree. So let me go ahead and refresh this here. Let's make sure nothing real changed. Yeah, so sustained winds are kind of low, right? They're like 9 to 13 miles an hour. Now, comparatively, right, that's higher than all day today, right? Like 12-mile-an-hour winds is as worse as it got today, like when it was playing 1.5 strokes over par. So while I think the sustained winds might be a little bit better in the morning than the afternoon, you still have these 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts to worry about. I mean, the whole way through the morning, right? The lowest the wind gusts get are 29 miles an hour. That's going to be really problematic. So maybe slightly better. Already moved over to underdog. Yeah, good shit, bro. I completely agree. Adolfo says, how many uniques would you put in an optimizer and would you fade the afternoon players? Yeah, I'm fading the afternoon, Adolfo. I don't think you have to. I'm doing it just to kind of simplify my process because if I was going to play any PM guys, I would limit it to 2 at most in a lineup. Most likely probably 1 PM guy in an entire lineup. But in terms of my uniques, I'm putting in 150 lineups. So if you're talking about unique lineups, that's what I'm doing. If you're talking about unique players, I have about 30 players in my player pool. Do you have a favorite birdie or better matchup? I don't, because when I was on here on stream, they dropped the board. So I haven't been able to go through it. But I'll take a glance at it for you real quick. How's that sound, JG? I'm probably not going to have one if I'm going to be honest. But I'll look at it at the very least. I'll do my due diligence. Let me make sure I didn't unplug my mic because I just shook the shit out of this table. Looks like we're good. Alrighty. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. These all look pretty shitty when it comes to the matchups, but let's go through them all. Yeah, I have to say these are not my favorite matchups, especially because like the wind conditions are so shitty that like birdie production is going to be really hard to gauge. It's going to be really hard to predict. It's also why like even the guys at 2.5 birdies, I wasn't that excited to bet because like there are going to be good golfers tomorrow, guys that make 0 birdies. Like there are going to be guys in the 9K range tomorrow that make 0 birdies on the day. And that's never the case, right? Like normally even a horrible round for like a Max Homa or like a Patrick Cantlay is like 3-4 birdies made, right? Tomorrow that could be 0 birdies. So that's the unfortunate part. I don't know. Yeah, there's nothing that I see myself playing right now. Nothing that's really jumping off the board. If anybody has any ideas, by all means, feel free to go ahead and throw it down in chat. Actually, I see one, I guess. This Herbert versus Molinax, and it all comes down to health. Molinax is injured. I saw him out there yesterday. He was getting his back worked on over and over again. He played good today. I have to say, he played pretty damn decent, that's for sure. But that back issue is going to catch up to him. Like you see it with Matt Fitzpatrick, where he's had a few decent rounds over the last few weeks, but he's also had a bunch of blow-up rounds mixed in. So maybe the Herbert over birdie or better matchup, but probably not getting an investment from me, just to be fully transparent there. Let's see. You're by yourself. I can meet you at Fleming's in 30 minutes. Hey, if you want to stop by, Mark, I'm all for it. Yeah, I'm just and Robert says I'll fly out too. Hey guys, just come through then. I think my reservation's at 9, but yeah, that's the thing. Oh, underdog full board out. Okay. Let me refresh my screen here and let's take a look, shall we? Alrighty, so they got the full board up. 3 birdies, 3.5. Looks like their birdies are higher, right? Because they got 4 birdies on John Rahm, 3.5, 2.5 on Lowry. Okay, I think that's pretty consistent. 3 birdies on Rory. What is Rory at 3.5 or 3 on Prize Picks? He's at 3, right? So they're pretty consistent with the birdie marks. A few guys that are a little bit higher than on Prize Picks. Do they have any 2 birdies? That's what I'm looking for. If they post anybody at 2 birdies, we're taking it. 3.5, 3. Yeah, figures. Yeah, no two birdie marks. If we had a 2 birdie mark, that would have been a nuke and a half to go after. Actually, guys, I think I see the bet. So I 100% see the bet. I want to do this real quickly and hope that these don't get bumped. It's overs and cumulative par 3 strokes, guys. These are like all gonna hit. And Ideally, you want these PM golfers. So I'm going to go to the bottom of the board here and find a few guys to fade. So let's take Jason Day over. Let's take Sam Burns over, right? He's not playing that well. So I think he's a pretty safe over to take. Scotty, believe it or not, at 12, right? I'd be fading him too. Yeah, guys, I think I found the edge over here in Underdog. This could be a massive moneymaker. Let's just find, what is that, 4? All right, let's just do that. We're just going to enter this. My mic unplugged. Sorry. The mic is, I'm fixing the mic. So give me a second, boys. Trust me, it might be out for like 30 seconds here, but I'll get it. I think we're good to go. Hopefully you can hear me. Let me know down in chat, guys, if you can, whether you can hear me or not. But yeah, this is the card I just went with. So these overs on par 3 strokes, I legitimately think the par 3s might play like a stroke and a half over tomorrow. They're going to be the most difficult holes. You're going to see a few guys still make birdies on the par 5s, but all of these are 300 yards. Sorry, I said 300 yards long. 300-yard par 3 would be ridiculous, but they're 200-yard plus par 3s. So they're going to be extremely difficult. With the winds, they're going to get even more difficult. And the reason why I took these PM golfers for like Jason Day, Burns, and Scheffler is because they're going to have even firmer greens than the guys in the morning. Also greens with more imperfections on them as people walk over them during the day. So yeah, so honestly, I don't think they're going to bump these that quickly, right? Honestly, the whole board, literally every player on this board, even the AMT times guys, I would take for the over for cumulative par 3 strokes. Now the PMT time, right? Advantageous for the reasons I just gave. But if you can get guys in the morning at 12, so let's see. Who did they have at 12? They had like Rahm at 12. They had like Tony Finau at 12. Like, I'm probably not fading John Rahm for obvious reasons, but you could easily take his over too. And I would not be arguing with that whatsoever. What's the mic? You can hear, okay, good. Underdog cut Luke's mic. Yep. Let's see. John at 4 birdies. Yeah, it's even hard to fade him though, right? Because of how well he's playing. Kind of a stupid question, but what kind of limit on tee times would you start to fade? Just the PM guys. So the guys that are, I think it's like 8:40 a.m. or earlier, are the guys that I would play. And then anybody that's starting at like noon or later, I would probably fade. Im under 3 birdies, I probably wouldn't touch that. I think he's at the same thing on Prize Picks. C. Gianni says, I know it's a long shot, but on Points Picks, you locked in Westmoreland at plus 600. Like you said, it's throwing darts. You're having fun with it, C. Gianni. I have no problems with it because you're having fun out there. So, like it. And you're saying teeing off at 1. What is his strokes line at? Because, like, honestly, I prefer some of the strokes fades to the ones for birdies are better. I think when Damon said before, kind of like hit the nail on the head, like you're still going to have guys that maybe make like 3-4 birdies, but those players are probably still shooting at best like even par. So probably the best way to fade this is probably with strokes, but he's at 73.5. Yeah. I don't know. Both seem pretty fair, to be quite frank with you. I might even just consider fading the cumulative par 3 strokes. Like, I think that's going to be a huge moneymaker for tomorrow. Rory under 3 birdies, I would not do that. No, I would not bet his over. I wouldn't take his over or his under. He's more than capable of still making birdies out there tomorrow because of his driving distance. Like, he's going to have wedges into a lot of these greens, particularly the ones that are downwind. You guys got to remember that too, right? Like, there's 4 par 5s on property. Sure, like 2 of them are probably going to play into the wind, but 2 of them are going to play downwind. And the 2 that are playing downwind might be a wedge for Rory McIlroy tomorrow. So I don't want to say that we can count on him making at least 2 birdies, but kinda, right? Like, he's probably going to tick those 2 off at the very least. And then if he gets 1 more, you're pushing there. So I would probably avoid that. Westmoreland for the outright win. Yeah, I figured it was. They're taking them off already. Of course they are, because you guys are nuking them. That's kind of what they do. Cal says, did you see any of Homa today? I didn't see a ton of him. I did see a few shots, right? Because he was one of those big groups. I want to take a look at the shots gained, because on the golf course, you can only see so much. Well, he shot 2 under par, right? Nearly had the bogey-free round. That was the most impressive part I thought about his round, is he didn't have a bogey until 18. Gained off the tee and gained on approach. I like it. He's looked this exact same for like 2 months, right? The around the green play has actually been a little bit better of late, but he's by far the worst around the green when it comes to his shots gained categories. This is your prototypical Max Homa, and I have no issues playing him. Yeah, he looks pretty damn good right now, I have to say. He's looking like a top 5 golfer in the world, and I wasn't so sure on that. These are being bumped as you speak. All right, so all right, we're going to go ahead and end the stream then. If they're bumping everything as I speak, I do have to get some props out on Patreon eventually. So I don't want to get everything bumped out there. So we'll go ahead and cut it off there. But I appreciate everybody stopping by, enjoying the stream as per usual. Breakfast Ball says, yo, huge shout out to you. Outside of the Rory miss and Finau push, we had a great day. Yeah, absolutely. There were a few other props that missed too, Breakfast. Like Sam Burns had a really bad day, right? But we took like 20 props, right? So we're not going to get them all right. I appreciate that. I appreciate the shout out there, the love and whatnot. But I'm going to extend that love out to you guys now. I appreciate you guys coming by, enjoying the content, making this something that I can do for a living. And so I can show up to events like this, right? And watch these golf tournaments in person. Because if you guys didn't enjoy this content, if you guys didn't hit the like button, if you guys didn't show up, right, to all these live streams, I literally wouldn't be here right now. So, I want to thank you guys for that. You guys have no idea how much it means to me to be able to do this for you guys. So I know you guys say, thanks to me, you guys shout me out and whatnot, but the real ones to shout out are you guys out there. So like I said, I appreciate it. We'll be doing the same things for rounds 3 and 4 going live, going over DFS and our props there for Saturday and Sunday. And hopefully we can get the round in on time tomorrow. Today they had trouble doing so and conditions were easy. Tomorrow with all that shit show that's got to come, like, they're probably not going to finish on time. So I'll say that, but we'll still be going live. I'll figure something out, right? We'll do one of those cut line kind of streams that we do, right? Where we talk about the guys that maybe make the cut or not. And make sure you're all ready for your Saturday action. So like I said, appreciate you guys. Thanks you enjoyed Fleming's. Appreciate you. And I have to let you guys know how it is. I've heard good things from Mark out there about it. Appreciate you, Kyle. Appreciate you, CGianni. Do you think Xander or this guy, hey, you almost got me again, Cat. You're funny. I appreciate you, Cat. You're a funny dog. You waited until the end to say it too. Like I said, best of luck out there, everybody, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow.